let's focus on one other big aspect of the Taliban takeover of Afghanistan. Yesterday, we were flooded with visuals coming in from the Kabul airport that showed how thousands of people were desperate to get out of the country, hanging on to the plane's engine, plane's tire, climbing on top of each other to get on the plane, hang on to the door, get on its top, however they could get out of that country. That's how desperate many are. That's how scared people are of what will happen to them. It is bound to happen that many of them will seek asylum, will seek refuge in other countries. Many of the other countries across the world have indicated that not only will they evacuate their own people, but they will also bring back those Afghans who've helped them, who work closely with these nations, and give them protection. Others have also said they're willing to take on more refugees. Countries like Canada have even put out a number of how many people they will open up their doors to. Those who are looking to escape the terrorizing Taliban regime. India so far has largely focused on bringing its own people back. But there has been one aspect that India has highlighted in its statement yesterday and today, and that is about Afghan nationals who may be looking to come to India. And India has spoken about how it has got applications from Hindus and Sikhs in Afghanistan who may want to seek refuge, who may want a visa to come to India. And for them, our visa facility has been opened, the details have been put out. But what does that mean for India and its larger policy towards Afghanistan, Afghan nationals? Are we going to open our doors for all Afghan nationals, or only those of minority faith, Hindus or Sikhs? What will our policy be? Are we going to look at those who closely work with us in our projects, wherever we've invested money, whatever we've built in Afghanistan? Those people will surely be targeted by Taliban if any of the initial details are to go by. What is India's refugee policy going to be? And beyond that, what is our citizenship view going to be for such people? That is the big question I'm asking tonight. Let's go across to our panelists who are joining us right now. Tuhin Sinha of the BJP, Dr. Anshul Avijit of the Congress Party, Vishnu Prakash, former ambassador and former spokesperson of MEA, Neerja Chaudhary, senior journalist, also joining me. Ambassador Vishnu Prakash, let me start off with you. Good evening to you. What should India's policy be specifically for those seeking our protection, refuge from Afghanistan?
What I can make out is that it has been decided that those who are the most vulnerable at the moment, they should be assisted to come out of Afghanistan, which would mean the minority communities in Afghanistan, because normally Taliban, and at least the Taliban that we know, would target Hindus, Christians, Sikhs, and also those people who have been working with us. So from what I have been able to understand, that is what is being planned, and I would think that that's the right approach to the situation.
Chaudhary, good evening to you as well. What do you think, should be our policy towards Afghanistan and its people? We very closely worked with this country, been a very closely linked part of their development in the last many years.
Is this question too?
My question to Neerja Chaudhary.
Oh, to me, look, I think there are three categories of people. One, like you had on your program, people who are here who may be studying, who may be working, who may be here for a variety of reasons from Afghanistan and cannot now go back home, may not want to go back home, given the new circumstances that prevail there. What do we do about them? Then there are those in Afghanistan who want to come out because they may be killed there. And there may be many women amongst them. Women has become, what is happening to women or may happen to women in Afghanistan may become the biggest human rights issue in the weeks and months to come. So what do we do about those who want to come? Now, we've already come out with a policy statement that Hindu and Sikh Afghans we will certainly have over, and rightly so, because they may face, they may be more vulnerable. But there may be others, who I know a person who at the age of 7 had his father and grandparents killed by the Taliban in front of his eyes. Now, somebody like that who's had connections with India will be a marked person. What do we do about them? Of course, our policy will have to be taking into account the humanitarian angle plus the geopolitics of the whole situation, because the war is now at our doorstep. It's all very well for America to go back. They are far away, but this has moved to our doorsteps and we are going to be vitally affected. So there'll be many aspects of the issue that the government will have to take into account. But as a country which has not had a legal framework governing the refugee policies and yet has given home shelter to refugees, right from the Tibetans to those from Bangladesh to the Rohingyas, we have been open, much more open than many countries. And today we will have to take a view on what is going to be our stand, and several factors will have to govern this. And I think the time may have come to get an all-party view on this issue. It's a major crisis that's going to hit us, hit the world. It's going to lead to refugee problem of a very unprecedented kind. So I would personally like the Prime Minister of India to get the opposition on board. I would like the opposition not to play politics on this one, but to put their minds together on how we move forward on these very, very vital and tricky issues today.
Yes, absolutely. In fact, before I bring the political representatives in, I want to take that one aspect that you raised back to Ambassador Vishnu Prakash. Ambassador Vishnu Prakash, like you said, India has made it clear that we are going to first look at the vulnerables. Apart from the Indian nationals, also, those from the Hindus community and Sikh community in Afghanistan. But what about women? What about women who've been working, stepping out, women who face a massive threat today? A lot of their nationals already in our country, students who are stuck here, who can't even go back and are seeking extensions on visas and other help from the government. Ambassador, I think you're on mute. Okay, I can hear you now.
Those who are coming in, what I was saying is that it's not that anybody is being excluded. It has already been stated that those Afghans who have been associated with us, you were mentioning that those who are associated with us are marked people. So people like them, their families, I think could certainly be brought in, and already a provision for e-visas are being made. Let us face it. What is happening in Afghanistan is a catastrophe of humongous proportion. The world has let down Afghanistan. It's a fact. Now, India is doing and has been doing what we can within our capability. We are a developing country. Our capabilities are limited. But whatever we are doing within the capabilities, we have already indicated that we will do it.
Okay, let me bring in then Tuhin Sinha. What would be your party's view, Tuhin? How do we go about it? It is the biggest crisis the world is going to be witnessing. It's a bigger problem for us than many of the Western nations because we are right here.
Well, yes, sadly, this time the Taliban takeover is here to stay because the US is considerably weakened, and the alacrity with which Pakistan and China have given acceptance to Taliban, it's a long problem ahead. As far as the refugees are concerned, we're very clear. Our immediate priority is to get back the Indians stranded over there. The second priority, obviously, is to get the Hindus and Sikhs, because they are the minorities. They are at the receiving end of the atrocities of the Taliban because the entire fight has somewhere got to do with faith. And finally, all the vulnerable chunks of population. But then, anybody who's seeking India's citizenship in this situation will obviously have to go through a process, will have to apply, and a decision will be taken on a case-to-case basis. But to expect, we would be opening our borders to all, unfortunately, unlike, 2 or 3 countries which are always happy to do that, we don't have that, we don't have that space in our country right now. And secondly, like I said, there are also security concerns. Nirja ji was saying we should have an all-party meeting. No, we don't need an all-party meeting. Samajwadi Party is openly advocating, the Taliban rule. There are two senior leaders of the Samajwadi Party. I don't think there is a need for an all-party meeting on this. We are anyway very considerate, but keeping the security concern in mind, we will, take a decision on a case-to-case basis in many cases as we go ahead.
Well, Suheen Sinha, if he began to give credence to any and every rabble-rouser, political leader who came across and made comments, then I don't think we would be able to have any serious conversations on policy for the country, as a country, if we start giving importance to them. So I hope the government doesn't make a political issue out of it either. What is required is for people to get together for sure and have a conversation, Dr. Anshul Avjit, on what our policies should be. Like Nirja Chaudhary was pointing out, we don't have a comprehensive written refugee policy.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. But despite us not being a part of any UN convention, notably that of 1951, 1967, our record has been absolutely stellar. It's been an exceptional record in being invitational and accommodative as far as refugees is concerned. We've recognized a humanitarian crisis where it's emerged, and we've let in people, whether it's Tibetans, as Nija was pointing out, whether it's the Tibetans or the Sri Lankans or people from Myanmar. Bangladesh is a very important example, and wave after wave of Afghan refugees, first of all, many of whom I know, first of all came in 1979 and then re-emerged after every 10 years whenever there was a change of power. Now, I think the reason for this kind of open-heartedness is because India's foundational moment, the moment that India gained sovereignty, was also built on a huge humanitarian crisis. I mean, there was a refugee crisis of monumental proportions when that happened. And therefore, because of partition, which is a topic currently much in favor. I wonder what the intent of the government is in invoking that partition debate. But anyway, that's for another time. I fear that there has been some sort of a qualitative change in the way, Tanvi, that this government traditionally would shift from its position and seize refugees. I mean, that not only comes from the CAA, a discriminatory law, which has been instituted in the Constitution. There have been binaries that have been built. Now human rights or human survivors is built on religion, through sifting through religion and religious profiling. That itself is bad. But, by the comments of our Honorable Home Minister, he's not really known for the delicacy of his words, but he did make that comment that people coming in from Bangladesh and Myanmar are termites, that can't go unnoticed. So I'm a little concerned about what this government's policy will be towards refugees, what will be the nature of its generosity and open-heartedness. Mr. Arindam Bagchi, who's the MEA spokesperson, talked about, of course, Hindus, spoke about Sikhs. Of course, anyone who's being persecuted there should be allowed. But I'm also talking about Hazaras. I'm talking about Shia minorities who've been persecuted. Anyone actually in the Taliban regime who doesn't follow the diktat is going to be persecuted there. What will happen? I think Nija was absolutely right. You have to have a larger debate on this. The government does not believe in any kind of consensus, any debate. And one wonders what the government was doing up till now. Just now, the parliament has, the Prime Minister has instituted a meeting and he's having a cabinet meeting. I mean, did the government of India not foresee this? This endgame of Pakistan has been going on for the past couple of months. The Doha talks happened a year back. And precisely at the same time, when we were busy quoting Donald Trump in India at that moment, the same time in February last year, were the Doha peace talks. India was always a marginal player in any of these kind of negotiations. And when the endgame of Pakistan was happening, I don't know why we didn't foresee this. I mean, there was a monumental and a colossal failure on the part of the US and on part of Biden and Blinken not to see this. But what is our excuse? Why didn't we arrange all this? E-visas now, advisories being given out now. But what happened?
Well, I understand what you're saying, Anshul, but frankly, everybody perhaps was taken by surprise. including, you know, the
No
biggest of the
excuse.
Western
That's no
worlds,
excuse, Tanvi.
where their intelligence has failed them, and how. I mean, as recent as 10 days ago, the US intel report said it's going to take them 3 months. It's going to take Taliban 3 months to take control of Kabul completely. It didn't even take them 3 weeks. They were literally there in less than 10 days. Yes. But do we need to move faster? Yes. Are we perhaps, running into challenges and there? Yes, we are. Currently, with the control of the Kabul airport with United States, many of those countries, US and its allies, are actually taking up all the airport space, all the airspace to get their own people out, hampering our operations. And it's going to take a while, which is what we've taken up with the United States. But on the larger aspect that you raised, I will ask Tuhin to respond before I go to our other two panelists.
I mean, it's very amusing to hear the Congress blame the BJP for not being prepared. Do they realize how futuristic we have been? The abrogation of Article 370 and 35A has fortified our security interests. So, you know, instead of blaming we were not prepared for this crisis, they should realize that today we would have voices like Mufti, Mehbooba Mufti, demanding, appreciating the Taliban rule. Anyway, coming back to the present issue, see, you know, if you just refer to the Pew survey, which was conducted last year, a significant percentage of Afghans over there had preferred Sharia. So all I'm saying is that a distinction, while India has always been very accommodative, like Anshul himself maintained, in the changing security challenges, some amount of distinction and due verification will have to be kept for genuine refugees, vis-a-vis those who might, take advantage of the situation to come out of the country for better opportunities. And that any responsible country should do. Rest assured, any genuine person who has suffered or who fears for his life or safety will be taken care of. But yes, I mean, like before, we have suffered for the open policy of before. The demography of Northeast has been hampered, has been completely distorted. That won't happen again. But we will factor in the relevant reasons, and we will give protection to everybody who is in genuine need.
So you're saying that while Anshul, the point that Anshul has raised is that you have a certain view when it comes to Muslims from Bangladesh and Myanmar, you won't keep that view when you look at Muslims from Afghanistan?
No, Tanvi, I don't know why you raised the issue. There are 55 countries of OIC, Organization of Islamic Countries. Is that such a useless body that not one country can come up and say that we are taking care of Muslims?
I don't care about what other countries do. I do care about what my country's policy is.
There are 700 Hindus and Sikhs. There are 700 Hindus and Sikhs. I think India can take care of that. But when it comes to lakhs and lakhs, I think some amount of responsibility should be borne by OIC.
Okay. Ambassador Vishnu Prakash wanted to make a point. Go ahead, please.
I have a simple thing to say. I do not belong to any political party. I have served the country and I look at it from the point of view of the country. Now, we can cite precedent, but the thing is that nothing is static. The situation changes, geopolitics changes, threat perception changes, and you take decisions what are in the national interest. Now, it is certainly a humanitarian catastrophe, but question is, do we have the capability? If we look at the pictures of yesterday, where people sacrifice their life trying to escape, there is a tremendous amount of fear. And given a choice, I would think millions of Afghans would like to escape. Do we have a capability of taking millions? I think we have to be realistic. There's no point saying things or doing things which are beyond our capability. Today, if we have to assist, I think the first priority should be to assist people of Indian origin who are vulnerable, and Afghans who are where the threat perception is high, but who have been associated with India. So I don't think we should be bringing politics. That is my view, but I'm only a diplomat or was a diplomat. I think that's all I have to say.
Ambassador Prakash, though, I do have one follow-up to you and to what you've said here right now. Is it going to be a tricky position for the current Indian government, because we've had a very different policy when it comes to citizenship and who are we going to give refuge to in our country so far. But Afghanistan is a very different case. The same government has worked very closely with the Afghani government, has invested a lot of money in building their parliament, their infrastructure. And so our outlook towards Afghanistan actually has been very different from other nations where we've spoken about that policy.
Absolutely, and that is why we are quite open to this. We have been welcoming of brothers and sisters from Afghanistan. Some 60,000 students are here or were here who have been trained, medical facilities. We have, even now, what we have been saying is that those who are vulnerable, those who have worked with us, they are willing to get them and even issuing e-visa. I think that is what we can be doing, and that is what we are likely to do.
All right. Neerja Chaudhary, I want to bring you in as well, to what is being said here. Of course, the argument that's made is that we don't have a endless capability to take on people. But can we really, define it on the basis of, people's faith, or will we have to find a broader policy and, clarify what our policy is?
I think Vishnu Prakash has put it well, that, it's not an indefinite thing. We cannot have millions come in and be able to absorb it and cope with it. Point well taken. I think like Canada has put out a number, maybe we can also, we don't need to declare it, but say this much we can absorb. And of course, there are people who are already here in terms of students. Also, what the BJP spokesperson is saying, of course, we have to be careful that there are genuine people who come in and not with a view to infiltrating and creating problems for us and our society, which we need to expect, that kind of an attempt will be made. But I would say, certainly not on the basis of faith. As I say, India stood for something vis-a-vis refugees, even though it's hurt us also. But people who face persecution, who face death, who may have worked with India, who may not be Hindu, Sikh. So a slightly larger category, I think we should consider. And I would again say, an all-party meeting is not like it is an attempt to get the whole nation behind your policy. Because it is going to concern all of us. This war is going to come home close to us. We need to be prepared for it. We need to act in step as one country, one voice. And, the policy, therefore, has to have the backing of the opposition. And I would urge the opposition also, please do not play politics on this one. The stakes are very, very high on this one. And I think it's perfectly possible. There are very experienced people on the opposition side. There are very experienced people in their bureaucracy who've dealt with these issues. Please get them on board so that we can have a cohesive, coherent policy which is in the interest of India, because it's, it is also our future at stake.
If I may, Neerja, just come in here for a bit, because, this has just come on ANI. We do know that Prime Minister Modi chaired a meeting with Rajnath Singh, Amit Shah, and even the National Security Advisor Ajit Doval present, with several other officials as well. Now, the ANI report that's just come out quotes a senior official saying that PM said India must not only protect our citizens, but we must also provide refuge to Sikh and Hindu minorities who want to come to India, and we must also provide all possible help to our Afghan brothers and sisters who are looking towards India for assistance. Now, this is largely in line with the kind of language that MEAs also use. How do you read this wording? Is it also indicative that, yes, we will help many others who work closely with us and who may face security threats now, especially because of their link to India?
Are you asking me?
Yes.
Yes, I think it is. I would read it in a way that it is wider than just the Hindu or Sikh Afghans. It goes wider than that. Of course, you'll have to be careful, to make sure that there are genuine people coming in. I would also, I'm sure the government is, Mr. Vishnu Prakash will know more on this, I'm sure the government is in touch with other governments as they are on the whole issue of recognition of the Taliban regime, they must be also in touch on the whole question of refugee crisis and how to handle it. Because in a way, it has to be the global community coming together also.
Yes, Anshul, we would have to take it up with several other countries as well, isn't it?
Yeah, there's always been a disproportionate amount of countries that are always taken refugees. When you come to the Syrian crisis, and that is, I was in Europe during that time. I do remember it was actually America was supporting the dictatorship in Syria, the whole Syrian conflict. Russia barely had 1,000 refugees. US took in 10,000 refugees, while Germany took in about 600,000 refugees. There's students, friends of mine who are in university, opened their doors in Germany. The UK only took in 10,000 refugees. Lebanon took in 3 million. There are always disproportionate amount of countries that take in refugees, no matter how rich they are. It's not, they have their own domestic compulsions. I don't know what it is. Maybe they're extremely ingenuous. India, mercifully, has been among those countries who has always been highly, highly invitational to any kind of humanitarian crisis, any kind of genocide, any kind of persecution and suffering and tragedy around the world. I hope it sticks to that. I hope this message that has come out is a broad, all-encompassing message. And yes, I do agree. You have to take the country along with yourself so that there is no politics being played on it, so that the government is never doubted for all its intentions. Because now anything the government does, anything the prime minister says from the pulpit, from wherever, from the Red Fort, whether it's partition memory, everything is taken with a pinch of salt. Nobody knows what the intention is because the government is so hell-bent on playing politics all the time. It plays out. In fact, it never normalizes anything else, whether it's legislative procedure or anything else. So always keen to go back into active politics. I mean, that's why the Bengal elections happened the way it did. It was an 8-phase election simply because I don't want to digress, but I'm just saying that the government is very keen on politics all the time.
Let's not digress. So let's not digress. But Tuhin's point here is, why should we take the opposition along when there are elements in the opposition who are going around backing the Taliban? I mean, who could possibly be doing that?
Well, if the opposition shows the kind of gravitas that Nirja ji or my fellow panelist, the ex-IFS officer, has shown, we would be happy to take in the views of the opposition. But just think about it. You have a Congress MP today, Shashi Tharoor, who's excited about the fact that a Taliban soldier has used a word in Malayali. You have two, and mind you, the two Samajwadi Party MPs. They are sitting MPs who supported the Taliban and who supported the Sharia previously. So, I mean, they are lawmakers. If this is their mentality, how do you expect us to, arrive at a broad consensus?
Anshul?
No. I mean, India is not a theocracy. I mean, the clerics are not kings. This is a secular democracy. We are talking on the forum of the parliament. You use the instruments that are given by the parliament to initiate a dialogue. That is our right. It's not a request. I know you deny all that request. This is actually our fundamental right to have a dialogue. The basis of this democracy, as you said, Tuhin, is a consensus-based democracy. There can be no democracy without a consensus. And to eliminate all fears, and you say there can't be politics played, I agree. Well, eliminate that politics and take the entire country along, so there'll be no finger pointing. That's the simple thing. You haven't done it up till now. 17 bills have been passed without any discussion, without going to the select committee. So you've got a record of not consulting anyone. I think a time has come to change over now. There has to be a qualitative.
So let me ask one very basic question. Let me ask one very basic question to Tuhin before we wrap this up. Tuhin, here is my question to you. Okay, we didn't anticipate how quickly the things would turn around. Everybody is on an emergency basis now, moving their people out. But we don't even know how many people are there. We don't even have a list of the Indian nationals who are stranded there who need to be brought back. That kind of groundwork, shouldn't we have kept that ready? We spoke today, Mirana spoke to a group of over 140 people who are stranded next to the Kabul airport, who say they haven't heard from the government, they can't get through the government. They went to the airport yesterday, they barely escaped the firing and the violence that took place and the chaos that happened. They're running out of supplies right now and they don't even know when and how will they come back.
Well, to my understanding, the embassy in Kabul has been pretty active in the last few weeks. So I don't know, the 140 people that you're mentioning, how they were not in touch, because apart from just taking care of the 700 odd Sikhs and Hindus, like you know, we had infrastructure projects going on in 34, all of 34 provinces. So it was a pretty active embassy. I am not exactly aware how these 140 people say that they were out of touch or they were not in touch with the embassy. But India has always risen to the occasion. Even in the last 3 days, we have swiftly taken out people who could be taken out, and we remain committed to that.
Okay.
One of the reasons
I can tell you though that the government itself and the Emir itself has said that they are now aware of the fact that there are many Indian nationals still stranded in Afghanistan who are working for private organizations. Some of those organizations is, for other countries as third-party nations as well. And they are now in the process of getting details and verifying details of these people. And then we're going to try and figure out how to reach across to them. And then we're going to see how we can get the commercial flights restarted to bring these people back home. But I'm hoping that each one of them is actually brought home on priority. Completely out of time. Thank you to all of you for joining me on this conversation. That's just one aspect. That's the immediate priority for India, as it is for any nation, to get our own citizens, each and every single one of them, back home. Some of the nations have actually already said it's going to be very difficult to pull everybody out. The Indian government has said they remain committed to bringing every person back home safely, and so we hope that happens, and we hope that happens quickly. But we shouldn't just stop there. We need to formulate a policy of how we're going to help out more people, not just on the basis of their religion, but basis on their vulnerability, and basis how many can we take in. As a country who's had such close links with Afghanistan, as a country that believes in democracy, as a country that believes in fundamental rights, individual rights to life and dignity and liberty, and equal rights, rights of women to education, to work, and to live freely like any other individual. We need to be keeping that in mind as we design our refugee policy. It just can't be politics. It just can't be about what we want the narrative to be. It has to be about the people. Thank you for joining us.